Alright, so what's up everyone? Welcome back to the second half. You got your boy Ride Boogie. We also got
Sweeney Todd. Happy 2024.
Sweet. Who else we got here?
And we got Peaches.
Peaches.
Organic and creamy.
Organic and creamy. So we're missing a couple, as you know, but we still have more than enough here. But today we actually have a real special guest. I'm honored because he made the drive to be with us. If you guys are familiar with Old Tower Records and the concerts there, you would have seen him there. I remember that Brian McKnight concert. That was a dope concert that you guys had over there. But this guy here, solid Bay Area native. He's had art featured with the San Francisco Giants, the 49ers, the Warriors, the San Jose Sharks, Sacramento Kings, NBC Sports Bay Area. He's worked for various personalities in film, radio, music, pro sports, restaurants, breweries, and nonprofits. He's also an SF State alum. His artwork reflects his passion for pop culture, sports, and community. Bay Area born freelance illustrator and graphic designer LeRoid David.
I need a nickname. I'm gonna need a nickname. Y'all got like Sweet Todd, Peaches, and what's yours, Ryan?
Ride Boogie.
Man, Ride Boogie. We're gonna have to come up with one at the end.
The Illustrator.
Yo, thank you, gentlemen, for having me, and thank you for pronouncing my name as my mom would prefer, because for people that have known me for years, they call me LeRoid, and I'm okay with that. LeRoid is something that my mom has named me. On my birth certificate, it's L-E'_R-O-I-D. French or whatever it is, it's an anagram of my dad's name, and I couldn't pronounce LeRoid when I was a kid, so I stuck with LeRoid. And I'm okay with either or, but thank you for saying LeRoid, because my mom is going to hear this and she's going to clap.
That was for your mama. That was for Mama.
Always got to do it for moms.
Shout out to Mom.
Shout out, moms.
But again, thank you, brother, for being here. I know it was a drive because you're now living the life, lighting the beam in Sacramento.
Man, y'all are Warriors fans. I know you're gonna hate me for this, but I light the beam.
You converted?
I converted.
Man.
I know.
Oh man.
Yo, but you know, basketball was never my when it comes to sports, basketball was never like a top passion of mine.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, so I mean, technically I was born in Mountain View, but I came to SF right after. So I like to say I'm born and raised SF. I was into baseball. Baseball and football were my passion because one, I collected sports cards as a kid. So having those baseball cards, I love collecting the Giants, the Niners especially. And then you gotta remember, we're 80s kids, right? So when it came to TV, who do we see the most? Basketball, it was Jordan. It was like
Boston and
Boston
LA.
and LA, Chicago. Yeah. We didn't really see the Warriors back then.
No.
But it was baseball.
Yeah.
And I grew up all over SF, but I also lived in Visitation Valley briefly. And I was only like a hop, skip, and a step away from Candlestick Park.
Right.
So just having that closeness to Candlestick Park, I was all about the Giants and all about the Niners. And, you know, basketball, I just kind of went with it, you know. Go
it's
Warriors.
Understandable.
I will always have love for the Warriors because I grew up in the Bay. And I was there. I went to a couple of games in the 80s, 90s. I was there during, the Run TMC era.
Yeah.
The We Believe era.
He brings up a good point though, because he's right. When we were kids, they were barely televised.
I was a Celtics fan.
I was a Lakers fan.
Right. And well, at one point when they started having expansion teams, I got into the Hornets because
Their colors, Larry Johnson.
Man, Larry Johnson.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Muggsy Bogues, Alonzo Mourning.
It wasn't until Run TMC when you actually realized, oh shit, we have a local team.
Yeah.
Right,
exactly.
because you start seeing the commercials. So I'll always have love for the Warriors, but then now I've been in Sacramento for 5 years. I started drifting towards the Kings. I started going to a few Kings games. I did a couple of projects with the Kings, and they took care of me, man. And you know, just to experience Golden One,
That's a dope arena, man.
We're not gonna hate on you. It's a natural conversion. And you know, it's your defense.
Good night, everyone.
It's the best time. It's the best time to convert.
It's the best time to convert. They got
Solid team.
They got a solid team. Yeah.
I think you guys are just missing one piece, and that's it. Really.
Oh,
we were talking about this earlier. They might get Pascal Siakam.
It could be right. It could be right now.
That's what they need.
Yeah.
Right now, actually, on my way, I was listening to our ESPN station up in Sac. They were just talking about it. So
Yeah, you guys became the front runners.
but we'll see.
But let's get in. First and foremost, as an illustrator, why don't you start us from the beginning and tell us what got you into art?
It all started in 1981. No.
It was a dark, cold war.
It was. I was living in the Tenderloin in a studio apartment with my mom. I started drawing since, from what my mom told me, and based on the amount of drawings that she kept over the years. I want to say 3 years old. I started drawing just anything. I was huge into cartoons and comic books as a kid. So I loved drawing what I saw on TV. You know, everything from, Looney Tunes. I'm huge on Looney Tunes. So I drew that as a kid. Toys, Transformers, GoBots, He-Man. I drew all of those. And I started drawing more over the years. Like, that's when my mom realized I had a thing for art. It wasn't sports, but it was either art and or toys. And thankfully I had both of those growing up. And of course like my mom spoiled me with toys. Did y'all collect?
I was a Transformer kid, and if someone gave me GoBots, you were still cool, but I knew you didn't like me that much. Right?
GoBots.
But they weren't Transformers.
No, they weren't Transformers.
I mean,
GoBots was on USA, right?
Think of the two main characters in GoBots, right? Compared to Optimus Prime and Megatron, right? Optimus Prime and Megatron for the Transformers.
Right.
For the GoBots, it was
Turbo.
Leader 1
Yep.
and Psy-Kill, who was a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And his head never disappeared.
Did you all watch a lot of cartoons growing
Oh
up?
hell yeah. Yes.
I was addicted. Like, it was like Saturday morning routine. I had to wake up early because I needed to catch whatever
6
was
o'clock.
on. 6, 7.
I was telling my kids, I think it was ingrained in us to wake up early because of Saturday.
Yeah. But during school,
Yes.
like during the week, it was so hard to wake up, right? But
No.
Saturday morning, you were
No,
up.
but there were cartoons after
there were
school.
there were cartoons in the
school.
morning.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, to go to school, you always had a hard time waking up to get ready for school.
Yes.
But Saturday morning, you were up super early just to catch those Saturday morning
With
cartoons.
that cereal.
You have to be up by 6:30.
6 o'clock.
Automatic.
Comic strip, like one of the first ones. Who can do hip hop better than the frog can?
Oh my god.
Frogs! Oh, wow.
Bring it back.
Man. This is going to be another segment. Like, oh no, LeRoid, we're not going to talk about yard. We're going to talk about
Cartoons
growing up in the 80s.
in the 80s. G.I. Joe.
That's going to be for another time.
That was it.
Yeah, G.I. Joe.
But
What was
that's
that?
dope. Like how you just gravitated towards that based on what you saw.
I was influenced by everything I saw on TV and on newspapers as well. I didn't read newspapers when I was a kid. I always looked for the comic strips.
Right.
You don't see that anymore. Here we are, 2024. no one buys a newspaper to read the comic strips. But back in the 80s, any newspaper I would see, the first thing I'd grab are the comic strips.
Even in Playboy, I look for the comic strip.
You know, I'm trying to think back. I mean, there were. Yeah.
No, there were.
Was there?
Yeah. There were.
That was my excuse when my mom.
And jokes. They had jokes.
Yes.
You studied that. You really studied it.
So you weren't just up at 6:30. You were also up at like midnight.
Man, I wish I had that excuse to tell my mom when she caught me with hella magazines back when I was like 7th, 8th grade. My mom used to always clean my room up, and it wasn't because she was cleaning my room up. Like she was trying to, like, are we allowed to cuss?
Yeah.
She was trying to find shit, and so she found were the Playboy and Penthouse comic books, and then some. I wish I told her, no, Mom, I was looking at the art.
You know, you're not
studying.
All 80s kids had that one sock drawer with really starched up socks.
Man, my kids are gonna listen to this. I threw my socks away, bro.
I hope so, dude.
I used mine as a frisbee.
You call that a boomerang?
Ryan, shout out to your sons because they're producers behind the scenes and they're listening to this, and it's a SMH moment. Shaking my head.
They know.
My kids are gonna listen to this and they're gonna be like, "What the fuck, Dad?" Like,
This is what my kids get. They just know we're hella bustos.
my 8-year-old Eli, shout out to Eli. He's gonna be like, "Bruh."
My bad, Eli. My bad.
Oh, is it bruh or Brit?
Draw other people as like Simpsons characters. And so you come to that realization like, oh, you can kind of go off the path and not just draw your favorite stuff or, favorite, whether if it's like cartoon characters or comic book characters, because I drew stuff like Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, all that stuff. But I think in the 90s I started to like develop I was just pen and paper type of kid, so I started to develop more cartoon styles to where you start drawing other people and you kind of come up with like your own style, but you're also influenced by stuff like The Simpsons, so the bulging eyes, that kind of thing. But I started to kind of like evolve my artwork. And then Mom buys you like, oh, how to draw cartoon characters, or how to draw like figures, that kind of thing.
So she recognized it though.
She did.
And she helped.
My mom really did, man. I mean, while my classmates were out, playing for like 5 different teams, here I am at home, just drawing, by myself, that kind of thing, and. I was the only child growing up, so it was like my toys and my art. And, in the 90s, I started to just kind of develop my own style. And I started drawing like my classmates. And then I would draw like my teachers. And next thing you know, in elementary school, I'm drawing yearbook covers. And so I think I started to get like that type of recognition like in school, and elementary school I wasn't like, I was the kid that could draw, but other than that, like I would still be the kid that would be picked last place like on the kickball team. I sucked at sports, but then thankfully I had art, and of course I used art in a way to be popular in some sense, even though I still wasn't popular, like kids would still make fun of me, because my name, or even though, I would say I'm Filipino, people wouldn't believe me. But then I was a good artist. They're like, LeRoid can draw. So art became almost like a defense mechanism kind of thing. But at the same time, I also recognized that I was good at something, and I just kept, doing it. When I got into high school, I found a way to get my art involved with some of the things. And in high school, I was bullied a lot, man. High school was rough. I went to Philip Burton High School in SF. Shout out to Burton.
Not to the bullies though.
But not to the bullies though. I remember y'all. So, but I started to from elementary school. I started to apply my art into high school. So I was doing like my own comic book panel, for the school newspaper, and then I started designing like yearbook covers. And thankfully, I had a really supportive art teacher, so she got me into doing contests, and for the first time, like in high school, I started doing art contests, to bring my art outside of just that small circle of, classmates and family and friends, but out to the public. And that made me realize, okay, maybe I can do this as a profession.
Did you have any other influences that helped you with your art?
First is my mom, and then thankfully I had a cousin. My older cousin James was a good artist as well, and I had some family members that were artists, and so
it's kind of in the blood already.
There's one uncle I had who was a painter. I mean, he was an in-law, but I didn't know what in-laws were at the time, so I'm like, oh yeah, my cousin can draw, my uncle can paint, so I'm thinking like, oh, it's all part of the family, that kind of thing. And speaking of blood, later on I found out my parents separated. My parents split when I was a year old, so I never got to know my dad growing up. But later, when I reconnect with him, I found out dude was an artist. He wanted to be an architect. And I do have this one thing from my dad that it was from a couple years back when I was hanging out with him. He drew my portrait, and it was dope.
At what age?
No, this was just a couple years back when I was hanging out with my dad. He drew a portrait of me.
Right.
And this was just couple years back.
Oh, okay.
And think about what did my parents want to be when they grow up. I know as a kid, I'll tell you this because of talking about the art and stuff, growing up. Yes, when I was young, I wanted to be an artist, but also I wanted to be a lot of things because I was interested in so many things. So I grew up in SF, and I was hooked on muni buses. I wanted to be a muni bus driver when I was young, because I thought it was the coolest thing.
For me. I never heard anybody say that.
Yeah. Shout out to my friends that are muni bus drivers or that work for Muni today. But I was into a lot of things because growing up in SF, that's what you were exposed to. My mom did not drive when she was raising me, so we took the bus wherever. I can name all the buses that I've taken as a kid, and that was life for me. Not just drawing home, but I was taking a bus, going to Chinatown, hanging out on Clement Street. They call Little Chinatown. But I wanted to do a lot of things because and I didn't realize later those were the things that inspired me as an artist today, was because having interest in other things.
You were exposed to a lot, especially taking the bus. You're just everything.
Absolutely, yeah. People, places, things. And till this very day, when I do art, sometimes I think back, to those times.
Yeah.
You think about when you're doing stuff now. Once in a while, you get that blurb, that bit of instance of in your memory, I just thought about what I did as a kid, when I was 7 years old. I don't know, maybe we go through it now, or maybe that's just us getting older, so we're trying to remember. But when I do art, and sometimes if it's a particular subject, I can go back to maybe like certain like happy moments in life that's related to the subject that I'm working on at present, and sometimes that helps me create, you know, the product.
Did you get into the street art?
Man,
you were on the bus a lot. You
wanted,
saw so much of the street art.
I wish, man. I was that wannabe, you know, in high school. So I went to Philip Burden, and we weren't too far from like the Mike Dream murals.
Yeah.
And I had friends that were taggers. You know, we go to the minibus. You know, they're you know slapping on their stickers. For a hot minute, I went by like, oh, my tag name is Sketch One. That was lame. That was super lame. Yo, like to any of my friends hearing this, they're gonna be shaking their heads. They're gonna be like, what the? Come on, man. Yeah, I wanted to get into street art. I never got into any of that. I think because I was afraid of getting into trouble. My mom was super strict. Yeah, and maybe that's why like I got so like I developed my art because I stayed home a lot. Because my mom didn't really want me to go out a lot.
Yeah.
I wanted to play sports. I wanted to do a lot of active things, but my mom was super strict.
Unless she was with you.
Unless she was with me, correct. And I think just because I was the only child at that time, and like I had a half sister later on in life, but I think my mom was really protective of me. You know, single mom, only child, and so and like
You don't need a baseball bat.
yeah,
You need a pencil.
Like you don't need friends. Oh, you're getting invited to a birthday party? Who? And then my mom's there with me.
I have a +1.
Man, you know, okay, this is how bad.
It was a different world, though.
Yeah, it was, but you know, I didn't have much of a social life, like growing up. This is how bad I was. So in, I want to say either 4th or 5th grade, I was invited to a surprise birthday party. So my classmate's mom gives me the invite. Oh, and I don't want to say this person's name, but here's an invite to so-and-so's party. It's a surprise. And then guess what I did? Later on that day, I go up to her. Oh, I can't wait to go to your party.
Oh man.
Yo,
We have a friend that does that.
Well, because you were exposed that much.
I didn't know what surprised me, man. I mean, so here I am spoiling my friend's surprise party, and I got to side eye that day.
you ever got.
There's a member of this podcast that still does that at his current age. So,
Yo, thank you so much for inviting me to your surprise party. Like, I can't wait. What surprise party? You know, I got an invitation for it, and I think that's what came out. That's what came out of my mouth, and I'm very sorry for that.
so LeRoid, you were walking us earlier, and art has gotten you to a lot of places. You did the cheer cards. You've gotten in, breweries. You did this. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Okay, so I know we're both like doing this audio and visually. So for those that are watching, I brought a 4-pack of beer cans from Claim Steak Brewing. Shout out to Claim Steak Brewing Company in Rancho Cordova, California, just above Sacramento. They are a family-owned brewery. They were actually the first place I started working at when I first moved to Sacramento, and this was about, I want to say, 5 years ago. At the time, I was working in hospitality. While I was looking for a full-time job, I needed to do something part-time. And because of my hospitality experience, I figured, okay, I could beer tend somewhere. I applied to Claim Steak, and the reason why I applied to these guys was because back in the Bay, I was also beer tending, and we were serving this beer at a Rancho Cordova, which at the time I had never heard of, but their beer was good. It was, I love beer a lot, and I remember certain beers, and this beer I was serving at a Claim Steak, it was like a triple It was a triple IPA, so yeah, it was high in alcohol, super strong, but it stood out to me. And then later on, when I found out I was, going to end up going to Sacramento, Claimsake was the first place that popped up. And, given at the time, this was like about 5 years ago when the craft beer industry was it was peaking.
Taking off, yeah.
Like everyone either wanted to hang out at a brewery or they wanted to be a brewer themselves. Because of my experience working in hospitality, I go, okay, I figured I want to work for them because they seem really cool. I did background research. Family owned. Hey, I'm a family guy. Maybe I can get along with them. And I went up to them one day, like me and my wife Stephanie, we hung out at their tap room. I had sent an email to the owner and told him I was going to come visit, but the next thing you know, I had an interview with them. I told them, besides serving beer, I could also do graphic design. And at the time, they weren't canning very often. It was just maybe once a season. And they were like, okay, well, we could probably use you later on. And well, fast forward, when COVID hit, they had to can tons of beer, and they already had a graphic designer prior to that who also made their logo. But when COVID hit, and at the time I was working for them, it opened up an opportunity to design labels. And here we are, 2024. I've been with Claimsake for almost 5 years. I designed, I want to say, 50 plus labels with them and counting. So I got a couple things that are due actually this month. So yeah, so it's a blessing, man. And we've done some really cool things with this brewery. They are a family-owned brewery, and so they've always been about just keeping it small. They give love to their regulars, their day ones. And the one thing we do is that they name their brews after their regulars, their friends, family, day ones and stuff. And because of my background in illustration, I will draw people on the beer labels, which is cool. And then one of the beers I brought is something we did for Max Payne Griffin, the UFC fighter out of Sacramento. So he is welterweight, yes.
Shout out Max Payne.
Max, what's up, my man? The owner is good friends with Max, and he decided it was one of his fights a couple years back, decided to dedicate a brew to him, and I got the call to do a label. I was so stoked, man. This right here is the first can we did, and it's called Max Payne. It is a hazy IPA. This was the first of two.
It sounds good.
And because of that connection, and I got to know the Griffin family, and so I ended up designing another beer label for Max, and then I designed one of his promo shirts, and this was like totally separate from the brewery, but it was just things like that, like just little like building bridges.
Yeah.
Making those connections, and and I have so much love for Claimsake's like my second family. They've given me like that second life in terms of just being an artist, because as you mentioned, Ryan, I was doing stuff for NBC Bay Area Sports, so I was doing cheer cards for a hot minute. Like I had this really amazing run of doing artwork with them. I was like one out of many artists that they had on roster, but one of the things that we did a few years back were these cheer cards, which were like giveaways. And those, and unfortunately when COVID hit, everything stopped because we couldn't go to games. Teams were playing in bubbles, so they had to get rid of the giveaways. And the landscape for us cheer cards artists, like it was a good run for all of us. There's some artists that from that time are still doing sports art, which is amazing, and I've become good friends with them, and they do amazing work. But that for speaking for myself, having done those cheer cards, it was a dream come true for me, because I got to check off that bucket list of doing sports art. because and Harold, we talked about earlier that you know, like the stuff that I drew. I also drew athletes. I drew like my favorite athletes. So I have drawings from when I was like 6, 7 years old, like Jordan. And my first experience of sports art was it was Brent Jones, right? So Brent Jones, OG Brent Jones,
Right then, 49ers.
SF Niners, man. Like there was I remember hearing on radio that Brent Jones was going to be signing at Tanforan, right? I forgot which store. I want to say JCPenney's, perhaps. But Brent Jones was doing a signing, and of course, being a Niners fan, God, this was '87, so I was 10 years old. I told my mom had remarried at the time, so I told my folks like I gotta meet Brent Jones. So in a few minutes, I drew Brent Jones, and it was just, I did it based off like newspaper, you know, articles that I just happened to have of like the Niners. So I drew Brent Jones, and I brought it to the signing. Everyone brought like a football cards, you know, like other like Niner memorabilia, and then here I am, this 10-year-old with a drawing of Brent Jones, and this is like core memory because, and I'll never forget it. But he looked at it, he was like, wow, like this is cool. And then I don't think I have that drawing to this day. I might, but
Did he ask you, did you draw this? Or?
Yes, and I remember it was like, wow, you drew this, that kind of thing. And I remember him signing it like to LeRoid.
Wait, and you don't know if you have that anymore?
You know, my mom kept a lot of stuff, but that I have to look at it because my mom made binders of like drawings I did as a kid. But the Brent Jones one was special, man. And it's funny because here we are, fast forward, I'm doing like cheer cards for the Niners, right? But Brent Jones, he wrote like to LeRoid or something like to a great artist or something like that, Brent Jones, right? And that like stuck in my head, man, for like till this very day. And it was just one of those things like, I want to be like a great artist. Like, yeah, I want to be.
Draw more and more.
I want to do more, yeah. And then it's funny because I told my wife Stephanie that story like years later. 2019, I get the call to do cheer cards for the Niners, and this was just right towards the end of the season. It was guaranteed they were going to make the playoffs, and then when NBC hit me up like, we need cheer cards, I mean, oh man, it was like I got emotional, man. Like my wife was there, like when I got the call, when you know, I only had a small window to create these cheer cards. I had less than 2 weeks to do it. And do we have I brought the cheer cards here, but it wasn't just one cheer card, man. It was 2 cheer cards, and we're looking at like a total about like what, 12 players total, man. Like, so to be able to illustrate that much and create it digitally all in less than 2 weeks, man, I spent hours, late nights, early mornings, but I got to do it, man, and less than 2 weeks. And for those that are not able to see it, you could see it on my IG, or here on YouTube, right? Yeah. And was so awesome. It was that full circle moment. It hit me. I was like, I did it. Like, I did it. Like, as a kid, I loved drawing, like, my favorite stuff, and then now I'm doing stuff, even if it's just that one-time moment. So doing that for the Niners, and of course they got into the Super Bowl, so those cheer cards were taken to Miami, and they were passed out there, and it was so dope because I had family out there that were watching Niners, and they're sending me pictures and videos of like people holding up the cheer cards, and even if they were holding them up for a second and throwing them away, but man, just that's stuff that I'm gonna keep for the rest of my life, man.
You created that, and now there's like millions of people holding it up.
Yeah, even just for that moment. And then and I mentioned this off air too, but I also did a victory. So for those of you that aren't aware, in 2019, the Niners lost to the Chiefs.
Harold's aware.
Yeah, it was a very heartbreaking moment, but I will tell you this.
Reopening wounds.
I know, I'm sorry to bring this up, man. Here we are in 2024, man, but I got to do a Super Bowl victory cheer card, and that was completed, and that was waiting. If the Niners had won the Super Bowl, that artwork would have been printed on on new cheer cards, passed out at the victory parade. That art probably would have been on some like bus wrap. And I would be part of that parade somehow, man.
But you're holding on to it right now because they're going to reach out to you in just a few weeks.
Man, NBC, if y'all listening, man, I just have to.
Come on, NBC.
I just have to.
You gotta bring this back.
Just a couple.
You gotta let them run it back.
I just have to take out Jimmy Garoppolo out of the picture. And,
you can take him out all day long. Man. Take him out.
Oh man, but it was that full circle moment, man, and like we've all had full circle moments in life, right? And then I can speak as an artist to have that because this is the shit I wanted to do as a kid.
Absolutely.
Like it was like, wow, like okay, like maybe I'm doing something right.
Would you say that was your proudest achievement? Or do you have something that's
proudest achievement as an artist? The cheer cards, I want to say yes, definitely top. One of my top achievements. As a person, definitely being a father, like that's the proudest achievement. So, but as an artist, doing those cheer cards was one. But in 1997, I did a logo for a very popular Bay Area personality, radio personality, Chuy Gomez. So shout out to Chuy Gomez.
Chuy
Gomez. So I was big on fan art, and we talked about. I mentioned a second ago, like I was drawing my favorite athletes, favorite cartoon characters, etc. I listened to a lot of radio as a kid, so we were all hung up. I always had the radio on, KMEL, right? Especially.
That's all we had was radio and TV.
Right. And I loved our
CMC
DJs, man.
Music Factory.
Absolutely, man. I loved our DJs. And so I was a huge fan of Chuy Gomez. And I love going out to the remotes, Oh, Chuy Gomez is going to be at so-and-so at this event, So I drew Chuy. I drew Chuy as a cartoon just for fun. And so I saw Chuy at an event. It was at a concert. I think it was at Marine World in Vallejo. And I saw Chuy, I'm a big fan, and of course, like radio was so huge back then. So when you got to meet the DJ, like that was the shit,
Yeah.
This drawing I had of Chuy, I gave it to him. He was like, yo, like no one's ever did that. Like, yo, like this is cool, like. So we exchanged numbers, right? And I'm like, this is 97, so I was about 20 years old, 19, 20. And here I am, like, fangirling over, this radio personality. But Chuy's like, yo, I want to use this. And of course, at the time, I just got out of high school, I'm preparing, I'm over at City College and, I'm trying to learn, art. Because after high school, I wanted to pursue the arts, and then I got into graphic design. So everything from like computer, like learning how to use computer applications, software to apply your art, but also just like the foundations of design in general. And here I am, like fangirling that Chuy wants to use my artwork for this, and next thing you know, it becomes his logo. He's blowing it up everywhere. And I gave it to him. People at that time, like my own friends and even family were like, oh, is he paying you like to do this? He was like, and I go, no. Like, I gave this art to him. And for artists know this. When you're doing something for a client, or when you give art to someone, becomes them. It becomes their property. It's theirs to use. I asked nothing of it because I was a fan. I didn't think artist first or profession first. As a fan, this is my gift.
Sure.
And he used it, and I was okay with that. And that made me realize, okay, maybe I can do this shit like for other people too.
Right.
Like logos and maybe illustrations, not just like for friends and family, but I could do it for people outside of that. And so that got me into.
That was the spark for you.
That was the bit of absolutely like that. Like to this very day, Chuy uses that logo, and I love that friends and fans still remember that, and that moment it definitely sparked a lot of things, man. And of course later on it made me understand like the value of art. When you do something for someone, what's your worth?
Well, let's pause here really quick.
There you
See,
go.
a lot of people didn't know, but Chuy took care of it, but I never asked for it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't like I didn't need to, but
It was organic.
It was organic. There you go. That's the word, organic, right there. And again, going back at the time as a fan, it wasn't because I'm gonna do this for you because this is something I want in return.
Right.
And but Chuy took care of me. Like honestly, if there was something that I wanted to check out or need, or if Chuy, I need a sweatshirt with the logo on it. It was like a done deal, and that was fine. But I was too busy with other things, man. Like to be thinking about like to be all strung up on just one thing.
Sure.
Like I started to become ambitious. Like okay, maybe I could start doing this for other businesses, for other people. And so as I was going through college, I went from City College to SF State. I started to develop my skills not just as an artist, but as a designer, like to understand like the business of it, to understand efficiency, to understand communication, and I mean to this very day, like generally, like artists are introverts. They just kind of stick to their thing.
Yeah.
They let the art speak for themselves. Not many artists like to speak. Not many artists like to speak out, like just like what we're doing.
So I want to touch on that. Being an introvert, as an artist, quote unquote introvert, what was it like being recognized by ABS CBN?
Oh, when I did the interview.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, if you were an introvert and then you're getting interviewed, what was that feeling like?
So, about 2 years ago, 2022, Giants hit me up to design the T-shirt for Filipino Heritage Night. Another bucket list right there. Filipino Heritage Night. Giants were like the first major league team. Not just Major League, but just the first major sports franchise to do the Filipino Heritage Nights. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but but that became huge. And I went to, I think in ABS CBN interview I said I went to every Heritage game. Well, I went to pretty much almost every Heritage Night game because it was such a proud thing to be a part of, and to see like a major sports team recognize Filipino or just Filipino heritage in general, right? And then shout out to Tim Lincecum. Timmy! So, but 2 years ago, Giants hit me up. We'd like for you to design Heritage Night shirt. I don't have that with me, but man, that right there, ooh.
Oh, I actually saw that on your IG.
That shirt is so dope.
It's the SF logo, and I incorporated like the Filipino flag to it, but it has a bit of a twist to it, and so it incorporates like the Giants colors, but it definitely has like the 3 stars in it, and it has a little bit of that sun design in it.
Yeah.
But that was the thing that the Giants wanted, and so I tried some ways to kind of make it my own. but the design I ended up coming out with, it was man, it was sick. Like I loved it so much. The hard part was that the Heritage Nights fall on Mondays, like early in the week. So a lot of folks that like that I knew wanted to go to the game, they couldn't make it, man. But I mean, the shirts were gone. Thankfully, I got a handful of shirts. Giants took care of me that night. But ABS CBN was there in person, along with some fellow friends, and including my boy Alex Rototo of the Lumpia Company. And by the way, Lumpia Company, I do artwork for. And Lumpia Company has a stand at Oracle Park. Yes. So the fact that
Lumpia Company.
So shout out to Lumpia Company, but the fact that I have my artwork also at Oracle Park. Oh, like that to my kids also, to kind of hopefully, like when I'm gone, I don't think I have much for them to be honest with you. Like Eli, you could have my baseball cards, but no, like
Especially if you like
I might have a couple, man, but no, like, but on the real, like to be able to do artwork and the artwork that I do for people, I hope that it lasts. I hope it sticks around, because I want my kids to be able to see that in pass, like as they pass by or whatever, and they could be like, "Oh, my dad did that kind of thing," you know. And it's kind of like what y'all doing with this podcast, man. Like, yeah, there's like a lot of folks are doing podcasts, but you know the beauty of this is that this shit's forever, man. You know. Unlike some of the like film that was taken back in the days, and you know VHS tapes, like some of that stuff is hard to retrieve, but stuff like this that we're doing digitally, like this stays forever, man. And you know we're storytellers, man. Look at us, like dads, man. Like who'd have thought, like.
But this is how our people used to do it. They used to gather around the fire pit, and this is
tell stories.
Right. Well, wait. You gather around the fire pit? I don't know about fire pit.
I wanted to.
We did have.
But you know, it was yeah. You know, like as guys, like we'd hang out, like shit talk, you know, and all that stuff. But if you look back, like so you know, Ryan, like we go back since almost like high school, because we had mutual friends and stuff. And you know, who'd have thought, like here we are, like, you know, almost like 20 years later, like we're reunited. And then Harold, you know, I got to know from when I was working as a restaurant manager. Like this is a beautiful thing, and again, that goes back to making connections, man. And so, you know, as artists, man, like connecting doesn't mean like, oh, I follow, you follow, like on social media. But this right here, man, the eye to eye, establishing relationships, maintaining that relationships, because everything I worked in so many industries over the years, because I had to work jobs and stuff like that. But those people I've gotten to know over the years are still, thankfully, most of them are still with me to this day. And I got to do a lot of business opportunities with them. And here I am at 46 years old, and I'm connecting with people that I met like maybe like 30 years ago. But here I'm doing some shit for them, which is dope. But if it wasn't for maintaining connections, and so a lot of a lot of kids these days. No, but there's a lot of dope artists out there. A lot of young artists, man. Once in a while, I'll get hit up. You know, like, yo, like, how'd you get into that kind of thing? Well, one, stay consistent with your craft, but two, make connections.
And be kind. Be solid.
Be kind, and yo, like, and for me, like, let's say from a business point, like, as an artist, like, be reliable. You know, when you establish connection, you establish trust. Right? Yeah. Don't fuck that up. Don't fuck it up. Do not fuck it up.
Don't fuck that shit, man.
Channel their shit.
Channel the ancestors on that
one. Yo, like, don't fuck it up, man. Like, connections is so important. And again, it's not follow me, follow you back in social media. It doesn't matter how many followers that you have, honestly. I mean, of course, that helps nowadays if you want to look at numbers. But just coming from experience, man, you know, like Ryan, here we are, man. Like we're talking years later.
Yo, like I never thought I'd be talking to a podcast, but this is dope.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, there's let people know who your character is, right? That when you're talking about connections, that's the deeper meaning to it. So, but again, man, thank you, man. Big ups to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Oh man, I'm done. But
No, you're not. You can refill.
But that just closes.
Refill, Phil.